Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. Welcome to the show. We're so glad that you're in our audience, whether you're watching live or you're listening on the podcast. We're so glad to have you here. We have a very exciting author tonight, JAHMIL EFFEND, and I'm sure you're going to really love him. And you need to pay attention.
That's right. Don't even move away from your screen. A couple reminders before we get going. Episode Rewind is on every Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Streaming up past episodes, and it's right here, right where you're watching right now. You can find us. Also, Rochester, New York Winter Parafest is coming up. That's March 25th through the 27th. That's a fundraiser for Veterans Outreach. More on that at the end of the show. There's a couple of minute film that you can watch that tells who's going to be there. And you go to rochesterparafest.org for more information. So it sounds like a fun time. Too bad we're in Florida and it's way up there in upstate New York, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd be there.
Or we would be there. That is true. Mm-hmm. Well, without much further ado, I want to welcome the host of Books by Authors podcast and Scribbled Notes and dark fantasy author, JAHMIL EFFEND. Come on in.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
JAHMIL.
JAHMIL. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh.
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. It's been a great day so far, and I'm super excited to talk to y'all today.
That's good. We're super excited to have you here too.
You're not too bogged down in the winter weather up there?
No, actually, we are running into some 50-degree days, which is
all right.
That's hot for us.
Winter for us. It was in the 70s today here, but you know.
Oh, you were wearing jackets, and I was taking mine off.
There you
exactly. Where are you located?
I'm out in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Well, you know, you're pretty close to the ocean. So I grew up in Massachusetts, and we didn't have very bad winters there because we were on the water. But, you know, so I imagine Connecticut's the same, right? You don't get like the Midwest does.
But you have your days, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have our days. Connecticut's weather is interesting because it fluctuates. It's going to be 50 degrees today, and then 15 degrees on Monday. So
there you go.
I remember driving through Connecticut on my way from Massachusetts to New York. I was going into New York City, and it was the worst blizzard I'd ever driven in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, couldn't see the road in front of me. And yeah, it was fun. It was a fun time. Not so much.
No.
That's why we live in Tampa now.
Yeah, a little jealous over here.
So, how did you get started writing?
Yeah, writing. The journey has been interesting. A couple years ago now, I was sitting around and I was thinking like, I want a story. I want to hear a story. I want to see a story. I want to read a book. And I got on this big kick of like, I need to read fantasy. I've always been a huge fan of fantasy. A lot of it actually stemmed from playing with toys. Growing up, I have two younger brothers. We used to play these long, drawn out adventures with detailed storylines that spanned weeks with our toys. And sure. I was looking for that again because the pandemic and everything that was going on, I was isolated. And as I was searching, I kept finding stories that were either not hitting exactly what I wanted or just not as dark of stories as I enjoyed. I enjoyed Game of Thrones. I enjoy Joe Abercrombie. So then I found myself in a situation where I was like, why don't I just start writing? Like, I've always enjoyed telling stories. Why don't I get into it? And I called up my brother. He's always been a writer. He's been writing since he was 8 years old. And I was like, let's publish a book. Let's tell a story. So we we jump in, we start learning everything there is to learn, right? Because I don't have a writing degree. I got my bachelor's degree in accounting and management and my master's degree in counseling for colleges. So it was like very different stuff.
Sure.
And then we jumped into the writing world. And from there, we really started to explore what fantasy was, what truly fantasy is. And it became something that now I can't stop. I couldn't see my life without writing. And it's so interesting because I was 27 at the time, 28 now, but fully really invested in what I'm doing. And it's so awesome that I've been able to find something I can be passionate about.
Tell us a little bit about your journey into what fantasy is, what you think it is, and how did that journey unfold? Was it through research? Was it through your own imagination? Was it through reading other fantasies?
Yeah, it a lot of it came through research because one, Brandon Sanderson, he has a lot of courses that he teaches at BYU, and he actually posted a bunch online. So while I'm over here searching for information, he's literally teaching a course on it. So I'm following his class and learning about the core values of fantasy. What is a good story? All the while, I've been a huge Game of Thrones fan, so I'm really understanding fantasy from that lens and what it means to have magic, what it means to give people mystery, because so much of fantasy is mystery. It is the unknown, it is creation, and really diving into what can you do, how can you push the boundaries of what we are as humans, or as other entities, and how do you connect that to other people. Oftentimes fantasy gets the rap of not being as serious, right? Because sometimes it can be very magical and mystical and fun and whimsical. But the fantasy of today oftentimes can be very dark. And I always enjoyed the dark side of humanity, right? I always enjoyed the psychology of people and what makes a person. And to that core piece is where I found my real love for fantasy, because fantasy gives you the opportunity to give someone power beyond measure and then see how they behave with it. And how would a normal person behave? And that's always been, that's what I learned about fantasy through my research, is that you can really see, even from some of the classic Disney fairy tales,
Yeah,
what happens when power corrupts. And that
right.
was the most interesting
that's
piece.
for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And they always like to show the dark side. It was in every one of his tales. So, well, they weren't his, but everyone that he produced.
Yeah.
And it was him that picked them out. So,
right.
But now Game of Thrones, you like that. I love that. But as you know, sometimes we have to wait 7 years before he finishes his next book.
Yes. That's one of the toughest pieces, because fantasy could be huge, and that's the other piece I learned. Epic fantasy. A lot of times, I was actually scared to read fantasy because it's such an investment. Wheel of Time is a long-term investment of time and energy. There's Malazan is another one that I've been dying to read, but I know that it's 13 books or 10 books and 3 more smaller ones, and it's so much. But the stories that are told can really just warp you into a new place and a new world. And that's what I found has just been the most interesting piece, because once you start writing fantasy, you really understand why.
Well, all you have to say is dragons, and I'm there. I would like to have a dragon. I would like to fly a dragon.
She's not kidding.
No, I'm not. I've been on a multiplayer game.
We've been watching
dragons
watching
for
the
over
internet
10 years.
for anybody with a dragon for sale. You know. Got a pen in the
eBay.
backyard all ready to go. You know.
Got a cave back there.
Yeah. It's being built. It's being built.
Witcher, I don't know if you read that. Okay, love the gold dragon, my favorite part. Of course, well, we won't give any spoilers, but that's a not the kind of dragon that I would want. But I don't know if you've ever read the Dragon Riders of Pern, that series.
I have not.
Ian McCaffrey. And yeah, they bonded with their dragons, and they had telepathy together, the rider and the dragon, and they fought together.
Are there dragons? Are there dragons in your book?
There are not. My big thing is gods. I love toying with the gods. So I love Greek mythology and all of the things that it meant, and being able to twist some Greek concepts with some other concepts from different areas has been one of the more fun things, especially toying with Greek and Egyptian mythology and the way those things can blend and creating your own sort of, and in some Christian elements, creating your own sort of religious sense. It has been so fun.
That's great. I want to read it now. Yeah, because I love Egypt. I love anything about Egypt. I love Egyptology. As a matter of fact, right over here, I'll show you. Wait a minute. Hold on, people.
She has to go out and check on the dragon.
No. This is about
Egypt.
I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
But that's Tut. And can you see this little rock down here? I don't know if it's showing up.
It'd be right there in the corner.
Oh, what is that?
See that little rock?
Okay, a friend of mine has traveled a lot around the world. And so she would always bring me a rock from wherever she'd been. She brought me part of the wall of China, which I
Don't tell China.
Oh my God!
Get that off the podcast.
She pulled it right off the wall.
We put it back.
That's for the podcast.
Anyway, she brought me part of that. But when she went to Egypt, she pulled off a part of King Tut's tomb.
What?
That's what's in there. Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, I got fairy rocks from Ireland, which we had to send back.
Don't want those things hanging around. No.
They're really bad. You talk about gods, and well, in Ireland, it's more like elementals, which sometimes, gods and demigods are what we now call elementals. So, yeah, so kind of the same thing. You don't want to offend the fairies.
No, not a bit.
Yeah, leave their rocks.
Leave their fairy rocks in their fairy ring. Yes, exactly. So that sounds really great. Let's put that brand up actually right now.
Yeah, now your first book, that was with your brother, Jamar?
Yes. Jamar. That was with Jamar. War in the Fallows. And the idea behind it actually stemmed from a single character. We love talking about it because we came up with this mythical figure named Albion, right? And he was really the inspiration for all the rest of the book. Okay. And it was just this idea that he was the first high king of all kingdoms, and he ran the world after a war, and he was the high king that basically spoke to the creator god, and was informed that any king or queen has the ability to become a god and has the right to ascend. And from there, he created this high council, and this high council of gods that come together and rule over man and woman, and basically decide on all things in their worship. So the conflict that occurs just by nature is that a king or a queen, any ruler, feels this obligation to ascend because they have to, and they're chosen and all this other stuff. But they ascend by 40. By age 40, they ascend. And that becomes this huge issue when you think about wars and battles and other people taking or conspiring for the throne. And it led to this concept called imposter kings and imposter queens. These fakes, these lies, these people who were worshipped but then didn't actually ascend to the godliness, and all the ostracism that their families face. So there just so many stories came from Albion in his meeting with the god Eros. And from there we were able to tell a lot of stories, and that's how we started really getting inspired for War in the Fallows, because we were able to pick up what happens when kings go to war. And then you see through the first book what happens when something goes wrong.
Interesting.
Cool.
So do you have magic? Do they have magic since they're gods? I mean, can they do things that are supernatural?
There are some elements that I don't want to spoil, but
No, don't give us any
there are
secrets.
there are those who reach book 2 and start to see things and start
Okay.
to realize things. And
Okay.
then by book 3 that I'm working on now, everything about the world becomes more clear.
Awesome. So
Awesome.
let's bring up book.
When the Crown
2.
Gambles.
Yes, When the Crown Gambles. So the reason why I actually wrote this on my own was
Okay.
because my brother and I, we decided to do companion novels for this second series of books. So he's actually in the process of writing his still. But When the Crown Gambles is a story of secrets. What happens when a crown, when the king and the queen, what happens when you gamble with secrets, when you take risk, when you lie, and what happens if you're caught. So there's this overarching story that takes place in this book of a single actor that basically places the world in a situation where someone must do something, but once you act, you can't go back. Once the cat's out of the bag, it cannot be placed back in there, and it places one family in a very, very hard position due to a princess that likes to gamble. And by the end of the story, you really get an indication for what that gamble truly meant and what are the consequences.
Interesting.
Now, do you guys use what style what technique do you use? Do you like have outlines or storyboards, or you just wing it?
Pantser, a planter?
Yeah, pantser, plotter.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm more of a plotter. I will definitely go out and say that. Our first book, I plotted out a ton of it. I wanted to know exactly where we went step by step. I actually do more now pantsing than I would when I thought I would. And part of that's because now I have a better sense for how to kind of build out a narrative and build out the world. World building is one of those things where, as a fantasy author, you don't want to overthink it because you want to give yourself space to write more. And when I first started plotting, I was like, oh, this has to happen this way, until you realize like there is so much story that can be told. One of the cool things, especially in the second book, is the role that art can play. Because for the longest time, I never really used art as a tool to tell the story. And I talked to an author from the UK, and she actually gave me this advice. She was a professor, and she said, use the setting to inform the reader, and use the setting to inform all the rest of the story. So if you have a piece of art, for instance, you should use that art to tell a story from the world, right? You have an opportunity here to say what's on that painting. And then with that story from the painting, you have an opportunity to inform the theme of the story. So there's a lot of parallels that can take place through just the description of the thing that's on the painting. And as I've been able to improve as a writer, I've been doing that more and seeing people enjoy that so much, because you start to really dig into every description. Now people lean in when they're reading because they know there's something there, even if it's just a hint there's something. And in every song, I love writing songs in the book as well. So in every single song, there's something. There's a piece of that song or a theme from that song that might be playing out. And we like to write multiple character perspectives. So I'm a big fan of George R.R. Martin's writing style. Loved multiple characters. And part of the misdirect and part of the fun as an author has been being able to use multiple characters in different settings or themes from other people's chapters that inform someone else's story. So if you're reading one person's story, you're getting a description of something, you might not be aware that that description is happening in someone else's, that's foreshadowing someone else's outcome.
Yeah.
So you get to really have fun with all of the little pieces that pull the narrative forward and doing it consciously, but also not planning for it all the time, because not every time do I think, oh, this statue needs to have meaning. But the time that I do think this statue has meaning is when you feel like you really hit gold and you really are writing at that point. And I think that's where the fun has been as an author for myself, and how kind of my style has kind of shifted.
Do you follow the hero's journey?
I do follow the hero's journey. I think about it a lot, especially with my characters that have a long chapter numbers. So I have some of my POVs, you'll get 3 or 4 chapters. That person might not follow the hero's journey all the way. But if you're getting the 9 chapters or 10, 12 chapters with my writing, you're going to get a really clear arc of someone going through so much. You're going to get that defeat at one point that's going to feel like it's over, and then you're going to get that triumph and come back. And the hero's journey, I think one of the things actually with the hero's journey is I actually teach it to my students at Quinnipiac. I talk about the hero's journey as part of leadership development and the cycles you go through throughout your own personal journey, and how there's pieces where at some point, right, you leave to college. And this is a little bit off the writing, but it is associated. You leave to go to college, and that's that first piece of the hero's journey where you leave the nest, and then you're exploring this new world, and you're finding pieces that you never saw before. You find a mentor, you find someone that can guide you and help you along the way, and eventually you get to that point where you're learning a new skill and it's taking off and you're feeling great, and then you handle your first defeat, whatever that is, whether it's a bad grade in the class, or a lot of my students are involved, or they have a setback, their event doesn't go as they planned, and then they have to come back and they have to learn again and hone the skill all over, and then come back to battle that next demon and take on that next fight before they ultimately go back home for the summer as a better version of who they left as. So it's very fun. I definitely love the hero's journey, and I keep it in my writing as well.
Yeah, and it's the best part of every story, I think, the hero's journey.
It is.
And now I'm going to ask you another question. Have you found that your stories are driven by your characters? Will they not let you do things that you want to do and force you to do things that you don't want to do?
It's funny. I was just writing today, and there were scenes. There's things I always have in the plot. This is why I feel like I plot less, because as much as I do put down, this is what's supposed to happen, this is what's gonna happen, my characters decide how these chapters ultimately end up. There's conversations that they'll skip over, or there's emotional moments that I'm like, oh no, this person feels like this is how the character feels. I can't possibly bring this other thing into this fold. I have to find a new way to get that piece into the world, because for myself, characters do drive a lot of the story. I have an overarching plot, and I think for myself, it gives me, I always have to find the ending of the story first. So I'm really someone that's beholden. I need the end of the story. I need to know where I'm going to end up. And then when I have to get the characters there, it feels like it's the whirlwind, because now you have to help them. You have to put them in situations. And I think as an author, a lot of times it's putting them in situations that get them closer to where you want them to be, but that align with what they would do anyway. Whether it's how would they figure out these conflicts? And when I'm plotting, I'm saying, this is the character, this is who they are. How do they figure this out? How would they go about solving this problem. And then sometimes they've grown. And then once they've grown or changed from when I initially plotted, that growth or that change then requires some shifting. And once the shifting has to happen, you have to almost move off the old way of ending the story, or you have to be more creative in how they get to the end of the story.
Yeah, for sure. And I think someone that isn't an author that is listening to this is thinking, well, that's crazy. But
no, I can totally see that.
No, it is the way it happens. I mean, most every author that we've spoken with, and we've had quite a few on the show, all say the same thing. You know, they want to do something, and we find that in our own writing. It's like, well, and I know that Caleb Pirtle, one of the authors that we know, had said that if you ever get writer's block, it's usually because you're trying to make that character do something that character just does not want to do. And that's true. It's because somewhere in your head, you know that that's not the character that you've developed, and that's not a real thing for them to do. You mean you have to keep it true to who they are and how they would act. I think if you're watching TV or a movie and that character does something that you've come to know that character to be, and they do something out of character, it takes you out of the story. So
it does. And it's so true. Like a reader will, my beta readers are the best. They've been the best people at pointing that out. They'll say, this isn't like this person. So unless there's a hidden reason for their action or behavior that makes sense, they're going to point out that that's just not what they would do. Mm-hmm. And then when I get that feedback, it forces me to go back to the drawing board and think, is this scene happening the way that it should? Is this person being who they are, or have I not done a good enough job showing their growth? So I think that also plays a role.
I think sometimes we just get so close to the story and the character that we can't see that. We lose our perspective.
Yeah.
So the beta readers can help bring it back in. That is so true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're important.
That's for sure.
So are
they're major. Important.
Yeah.
Well, we're about halfway through.
Yep.
And I think we're going to break for commercial right now. Jamil, stay right where you're at. Don't leave. Everybody else, stay tuned. And we'll see you in a couple of minutes, okay?
Dear Lord, she's still alive.
Who's still alive?
Maris, that's who.
Come on, Angie, that's impossible.
Impossible or not, she's still alive, I tell you. She killed that boatload of people, and she's just getting started. There's no limit to what she will do.
It's not easy to kill a siren. It takes a formula and a plan. Siren Song 2 is the spellbinding sequel to Siren Song. Both novels by George Dismukes.
Siren Song 2 will be on bookshelves and bookseller websites in July. Don't miss it.
People Who Like to Read Want to Get Their Hands on Books by Becca Jones.
Becca Jones, the breakthrough author who tells it like it is. It takes courage to tell a story when it reveals dark secrets. Becca Jones delves deep into the hidden world of sexual abuse. She tells what happened and also tells how she survived.
Meant to Be is much more than just entertaining. Meant to Be gives you a point of reference, hope to cling to, and becomes a guide for survival if you have suffered the same thing. Meant to Be, Becca Jones, a must-have.
Meant to Be is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
Hey, see, we told you we'd come back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. What we'd like to do now is to have our book giveaway. So all you people that are watching on Wednesday, the
March 2nd.
2nd of March, get ready to type in here and get in on the book giveaway. The first 3 people to email inspiredbyjamil@gmail.com will win an ebook copy of War in the Fallows.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Keep listening and start typing. Let me tell you where you can reach Jamil. You can find him. His website is inspiredbyjamil.com. INSPIREDBYJAHMIL. I told you, Jamil, I get tongue-tied doing that all the time. His Facebook page is Jamil Effend Author, JAHMILEFFENDAUTHOR. His Instagram is Inspired by Jamil. And as you just heard on the book giveaway, his email is inspiredbyjamil@gmail.com. So
that's all the places you can reach him.
Start emailing if you want a free book. Just saying.
Definitely.
And it sounds really good. I mean, it sounds like a really good book. I like fantasy.
The series sounds great.
It does sound great. I didn't even tell the people who are listening, but War in the Fallows is a really nice book cover.
Oh,
you want to describe it to them, Jamil?
Oh yeah. So one of the big thing behind the book cover, we wanted to, my brother and I, we thought it was important to put a black man on the cover wearing the armor of a knight, because technically he's not a knight, he's actually the king. But we like the imagery, and for a lot of people, they were stunned when they first saw it because it was just nothing really like it in the spaces that we were in. And he's wearing his suit of armor, and War in the Fallows is just the idea that the war is actually happening in this region of 3 kingdoms called the Fallows. So that's really where the title comes from as well.
Yeah, that is impressive armor. I like that. It's cool.
It's a really, I think it's a beautiful cover. I really like it.
Gorgeous.
Who did the cover?
So the graphic designer, his name is Zach Christensen, and he's an awesome graphic designer. He was actually one of my former students that I used to advise. He's done some really cool stuff in Connecticut. A lot of his graphic design stuff has actually won awards. That book cover actually won an award. So
I believe it. It's beautiful.
He's amazing. He did the second cover, and I have him working on the third one as well. The third one is a burning crowd.
Oh, that sounds great. I want to see that. Now this is
an almost burning crown.
It looks like
the sword's burning,
melting sword. The sword that's kind of. Oh, I'm not very good with descriptive, but it looks like it's melting in the.
It's a sword ablaze with all the ashes, and part of the imagery behind that is it signifies some of the scenes that you might run into later in the book when the crown gambles. Because when gambling is just not always the most positive thing to do, and that's what we kind of want to show with this crown. This isn't looking too hot for the crown that gambles in this case. Actually, it's looking very hot.
The stakes are high, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. When the crown gambles, and this one is just by JAHMIL alone. In the first one, War on the Fallows, is he and his brother, both. Where can people find your books?
So they can find it on Amazon, and Barnes and Noble are the best places to really find everything.
And of course, if they go to your website, of course,
you can find it on the website. You can click on and see all that. And there's also an audiobook for the first one. The second one's audiobook is getting made.
Ooh.
I was going to ask that. So there's an audiobook for War on the Fallows. Who did it? Who narrated it?
So his name is Josiah Robinson. He's from Chicago. He was an amazing voice actor. Really easy to work with as well. It was my first time dabbling into audiobooks, and it is a very cool experience to hear your book read. He does all of the voices, and every character has a different voice. So it really brought the book to life in a way that I never really could have expected.
How did you find him?
I found him on this website called ACX. It's like one of it's the big one for all of them. And he actually
There's
submitted.
Hundreds on there, though. I mean, that's where we went to.
Yeah, you get a lot of auditions, and he auditioned, and he was one of the best auditions that I had heard, and it's just awesome because he was so easy to work with. He got the whole audiobook narrated in 2 weeks.
Wow, what was his last name again?
Josiah
Robinson.
Okay.
One of our grandsons' name is Josiah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I love that name.
Yeah, he's a great narrator. He made me laugh in some pieces of the book because he just delivered some of the characters in ways that it just puts a smile on your face when you really hear someone that just all the way invested. He sung one of the songs, which I loved. I emailed him back because he had read it as just the regular read, and I was like, "Can you sing it? Because I really need the song sung." And then he did it, and it was beautiful. It was a sailor singing a song, and he sounded like a sailor singing a song.
That's great.
That's great.
I think it's really great when the narrator can accent what you want accented. When they get what you've written and they write it the way that you intended it to be heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's when you're writing it, you hear it in your head.
Yep. I speak it out loud, so I definitely talk when I'm writing. I'm like, this is how this sentence is said.
Yeah.
Help to sort it out. Yeah.
To have somebody else get it and say it that way is great. It's very frustrating when people don't do that when they
because that makes it for a very long process. Yeah. And the thing I enjoyed about working with him was that there was a part where there's so many names and so much of that stuff where you can only do it phonetically for so long. So we actually sent voice memos of me saying the name and him repeating it back so he could actually hear how I wanted it said. And that changed the game because we started doing it with locations and everything. And he was just like, great, this is exactly the kind of feedback you need. But it was just so cool because he was thinking outside the box there.
That's cool. That's
really good. When you were talking about beta readers before, one of our beta readers came to us and said that we're of Irish ancestry. And so one of the characters' name is Siobhan, which is, to me, it's like, well, everybody knows Siobhan and how to pronounce Siobhan. But this person said, is that a Swedish name or how do you say that? And I'm like,
hello.
Swedish.
So
now it is spelt oddly. I'll give you that. Irish is spelt oddly. I get it. I mean, our son is Sean and everybody called him Cian when he was in school and he'd have to say no. My name is Sean, and Siobhan is like that, but I never gave that a thought. That was something that I didn't think about.
Yeah, so we had to put the phonetic spelling in there.
And say it's an Irish name.
Yes, here's what it means.
But we wouldn't have done that if it hadn't been for a beta reader. I would never have thought of that. So do they have trouble with any of the names that you've given? I mean, I know I do when I read books. I'm like, wonder how they want this said.
I think one of them, her Jenna, she's the first of the kingdom. I spelled her name Jynna. And a lot of people had trouble just deciding on how it was supposed to be said. I wanted it said Jenna. I just like throwing Y's in weird places. I like writing, it's fantasy. I can put a Y can go anywhere in my names.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it was one of
you don't have to tell them why.
Yeah.
It's in a different realm.
Yeah, she was one of the ones that people had difficulty with. But a lot of my beta readers, they said I kept most of the names relatively simple. Tristane was one that was hard for people. They could call him Tristan. I was like, his name's Tristane. I just wanted to be Tristane because I like the stain piece of his name. That was important to me. So that was something important for the narrator to get, because a lot of people who listen to the book, that's what they think. Like, that's what the name is called.
Well, names are important. They really are.
Yeah, and the names are super important. And I think that one of the main characters, his name is Asher, and I make a lot of jokes about his name. So I enjoy like really poking at certain things. I have a character named Mary, and there's other characters attached to her that kind of go off of some of the traditional Christian thoughts on Mary and all that stuff. So there's ways to have fun and poke at certain things and allude to things.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds really great. I'm really finding your books very interesting. What did you say the third one is going to be called? The Crown on Fire?
So the third one is actually going to be, it's unnamed right now. It's actually going to be called, right now the working title is Age of Imposters.
Okay.
And part of that's to go with the idea of the imposters, the imposter kings and imposter queens. That's a piece that gets talked about a lot as a big fear for all the kings that you follow in the first book. And it continues to be talked about as you go through the story and the narrative. So Age of Imposters will give you kind of the understanding of what maybe we might be expecting coming up as one of the big themes and issues that might occur in this next book.
How far do you see the series going? Beyond book 3?
So I think this series will probably continue with other iterations of characters. I know this main cast, this will be their last time in the spotlight for me. There's 2 characters that have continued to really progress through the rest of the stories. This new cast of the last 4 characters that are in this book that have POVs, they will not have more POVs. Mostly because I wanted to be able to explore some of the other pieces of the High Council series and some of the other characters, because the world is vast. We have 13 kingdoms represented in the world. You have a ton of kings and queens, a ton of lands that don't get explored in depth, only alluded to. And I really want to be able to spend some time in some of the different regions. We spend a lot of time in the Breeze lands and the Esther lands and the Isles of Jaha. I want to be able to spend some time in Tamerlane and some of the other lands like Cold and see what's over there, and have people explore and have fun with the characters in those other lands.
That's cool.
Find out what's going on over there.
Oh yeah.
You could create all these places.
Because there's a lot going on in there.
So, Jamil, you were telling us you host a couple of podcasts.
Yes.
Would you like to tell the audience about that?
And where we can find them, where we can listen to them.
Yeah, so you can find everything could be found under Scribble Notes. Scribble Notes podcast is really the big umbrella of it all. There's a ton that goes on. The podcast itself is really geared around helping creative people get connected and helping creative people learn about their process. So I talk to a lot of authors, a lot of musicians, photographers, even videographers, anyone in the creative space, a lot of influencers and stuff. about how do they connect with audiences, because I think ultimately we all are finding ways to connect with audiences, to connect with people and share stories. So I talk to anyone that shares a story. And it's been an awesome experience. This latest batch of folks I've been able to interview have been really good at sort of teaching through their own learning. A lot of it is conversational. A lot of it is just them sharing their life with me for their 40 minutes or 45 minutes that they might spend. And then I have another show alongside my wife called Barely Outlined. In that show, we actually talk about the business end of a creative. So starting your own business, like, what is that like? What are some of the things you might face? One of our episodes was on imposter syndrome and going into a space that you don't know about. So we talk all about the different aspects of business, being a family and being a working person. How do you manage your business and still be creative and have that outlet in your life? And then I have my own show, Random Notes, which I just talk about a lot of things that are really motivational or self-help style type conversations. A ton of it's geared towards authors and advice, but a lot of it's talking about creatives and how you can break through noise. What are the different things I've learned through my process that I think could help someone else as they're trying to get started, as they're trying to find what they're passionate about, or exploring the different passions they might have. So it's a really cool show that has a lot of mishmash of whatever that all ties back to creativity, and it all ties back to how do you further the things you want to do with your life that might not necessarily be tied to the work that you do for a living.
Now, do you have interaction with the audience at all in your podcast?
So I do not right now.
Okay.
One of the areas where I'm having a lot of fun is actually on Instagram. So if you're following my Instagram right now, you're probably going to see that there's a lot of content geared towards reels and some of the other things going on. So you get a lot of updates from as far as clips of the show, and I do a lot of engagement there.
Yeah, it's been the best part of our podcast for us is meeting all of the authors.
Meeting you guys.
Meeting you and finding out what makes you tick, why you started doing what you're doing. And really, a lot of people have such an interesting and amazing life journey that has brought them to this place where they've decided to write, that we're just inspired by everybody. But you make me tired.
You're busy.
I mean,
Holy
you
cow.
are a busy man. Just listening.
When do you find time to write?
Yeah, or do anything.
I've been finding time to write during lunch.
There you go. On the napkin, right?
Yeah, on the
So
napkin.
JAHMIL is getting very thin.
There you go.
No time to eat lunch.
It is. There's never time to eat lunch, but it's been interesting. I think I've taken on a lot as far as seeing how much I can do and how much I can manage. One of the ways that I kind of do it is I do everything in waves. Right now I'm on the writing wave. Right now it's everything related to writing. I don't do really anything else but write. I do podcasts every now and then, but most of my energy is focused on writing. And then I'll have seasons, as soon as I finish the book, everything's podcast related. Because there's a couple months there where I have beta readers reading the book and I can't really do anything with it until they finish. So then I'll do podcast related things. I'll store some episodes up, and I find myself now kind of getting into a better groove with managing it all. The other thing that I really invest a lot of time into is making sure I go to the gym and work out to keep my body physically healthy. Because
in your spare time.
Yeah, in my spare time, which is a couple of days ago it was midnight. That was the spare time. So yeah, I go to a 24-hour gym so I could find some energy, some time, but a lot of it's just being able to kind of just ebb and flow. I don't try to overwhelm myself with things. So if I see that right now isn't the time, right now isn't the season for me to do a certain activity, I won't invest as much time into it, just so I can keep some energy. And I think one of the things that's important for anyone that's creative is to just know you don't have to do everything at once. It's not all going to get finished at once. So as long as you don't go in with the mindset that I have to write the book this month. I have to post all these episodes. I have to do a YouTube channel. I have to go also post on Instagram and social media and then update my Facebook page. Like, if you're trying to do all that at once, you're not going to last.
You're not going to do anything.
Yeah, you're not going to do anything. It's going to be too much. So just taking it in small steps, doing small things, and being okay with making something have to wait till tomorrow. It just saves you all the hassle and all the energy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, being the parents of 6 children and the grandparents of 14 grandchildren, I'm just worried about what your mother was like with you and your brothers, because I'm thinking you guys had a lot of energy when you were young.
Yeah, my mom's she's the mother of 6.
Is she?
Oh, okay.
She and I have something in
Yeah,
common.
and you know, she actually has 13 grandkids.
Oh,
you're kidding.
see?
No
Okay.
lie, she does. So it's a big family. She's shown me that if I can just these are extra things I'm deciding to do. So clearly, someone that's forced to have all of the energy in the world to raise all the kids and take care of grandkids, that my job isn't that difficult here.
Well, good for you, because it does take a lot of energy to raise 6 children and then take care of 14 grandchildren. But it's the best.
I can only imagine. I have one child, and she's 6 months old.
Oh,
so
awesome.
she's a little button, and she's already a lot of things to take care of.
Yeah.
A ton of work.
Yeah.
Can I even imagine a second, third, fourth, fifth, or 6th?
That's what all of our kids have said. I don't know how you did that, but it makes holidays and family get-togethers so great, doesn't it? Because people always ask us, well, how many people are at your family, like for Easter or Christmas or Thanksgiving? And we're like, well, we have to set up 3 tables. So
a little bit of everybody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And their families. And
I know. It's busy. It's a really busy thing. So 6 months old. What's her name?
Her name is Marley Harper. She has 2 first names.
Oh, that's
nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, she's amazing. It's been so interesting watching her grow up. I was able to take a few months off to actually see her as a baby and change and grow, and it's been so cool because it's just something that I never really. It's an experience by itself that you can't really describe to anyone that doesn't have kids. And I think one of the things it actually has done is change the way I kind of write children and parent relationship dynamics, because you start to realize how much a parent actually loves their child, or how much they can love their child, and the lengths that they'd really go. You think you understand before you have kids, and then you're like, no. You could never understand. Like there's a reason why. Yeah, there's a reason why there's such a connection there. So it's made me even think about, okay, when I'm writing, what is that connection? Why do they care so much? Or why would they go this far? And that's been really cool.
Yeah. Now you do anything for her. And anything to protect her.
Yeah. And yeah, it's crazy. It's a huge shift that I did not see coming.
Yeah. It's amazing when you first meet them, isn't it?
Oh.
Like your heart just grows 3 times bigger, just like the Grinch.
I can remember. I could remember the moment vividly.
Yeah,
you'll
never forget that. You'll never forget that.
I remember when one of our kids was born, our son. He he heard his dad's voice, and he was not even an hour old, and he was really strong, baby. He's a strong man now, and he lifted up his head and turned towards his dad.
And looked over at me. Yeah.
The doctor and the nurses were like, what?
What is that?
What happened?
But he recognized his dad's voice. So
I can still see that in my
strong.
mind,
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
His little head and wobbly head. But
yeah, well, he's still a wobbly head.
The bond goes both ways.
No. Just kidding. So, back to the author thing. What kind of we're kind of running toward the end of the show here. What kind of advice would you give to an aspiring author who is looking at this huge thing of millions and millions of books on Amazon, and how do I get out there? Give them any advice?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has helped me, and the thing that I've heard a lot of authors talk about, is just try, just go for it. It can be overwhelming when you see the amount of content that's out there, when you see the names that are out there that you're trying to be next to on the bookshelf. Just go for it. Just try. Sit down and just write. It won't all happen at once, and you won't be great all at once. No one is. No one's perfect at once. So sit down, tell your story, because your story is worth telling. You don't have to feel like it has to be a bestseller every single time, because it might not be, and that's okay. It's okay to not be the greatest author on your first book, because you'll only improve. And the more you write, the better you'll get at it. You can tell stories in your head all you want, but until you're sitting there and typing it out or writing it out, you're not really doing the art, because the art is so much fun. I find myself stuck in my story sometimes. I find myself glued to the next chapter, thinking about what is going to happen to my characters. It's something that you can't really describe unless you're actually doing it. So for anyone that's starting out, just try. I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any of the knowledge. So much of it's out there for you. So many people are willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
Just start. Start. And then from there, you'll get all the rest of the pieces. You won't publish in one day. You aren't going to publish until you have the manuscript. So just start writing, and you'll learn all of the rest of the pieces as you go. One of the things that paralyzed me was not having the information and not thinking I could. You can. And as an indie published author, I know you can. So just try, just start, just do it.
Do you find networking important to you?
Oh, yeah.
Has it been a big help?
It's helped me leaps and bounds. I think the amount that I've grown as an author is really an indication of how many people I've met and how many people have really invested time and energy talking to me and speaking to me about writing, giving me advice and tips on how they tell stories. There's so many people in the community that write, so many people that you can connect with that write and tell stories. Podcasts to listen to like this that can give you insight into the author's mind, or how do you solve a problem. So right. I think networking plays a major role in continuing, especially as a self-published author in indie publishing, continuing to grow as a person, as a brand, and as an author, as a writer. All of those skills are enhanced when you know more people.
I guess I'd add one more thing to that and say, don't write to make a lot of money. Don't do that. Write to write.
Write to write.
Write to write. And if you do get a bestseller or you do make a lot of money, okay, that's gravy, but I don't think you should expect it. That shouldn't be why you write. That you should write because you want to write. You love to write. You started writing not because you thought, oh, this would be a great way to make $1 million. You started writing because you wanted to tell a story that you hadn't been able to find.
Mm-hmm.
You had a story that you wanted to tell.
Yeah, and that's the piece that people forget. Like, everyone starts off with a story that they want to tell, and that's enough. Like,
it is.
As much as it might not seem like it, that's enough. Like, being able to share the book and let people read the story and see how they react to the ending or the plot twist or this and that, that is more valuable to me than anything that I do to get money, because I feel the connection when someone finishes the book. I've had friends text me, hey, just finished book 2.
Yeah.
That ending. And I'm like, I know. Like, and it feels good that they know, that I know, that we all can talk about the story and they can theorize on where it's going to go. And I can know that I'm writing the next one, and that they're going to have that story with them for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And there's nothing like holding your first
you get that book. First book. Yeah. Get that paperback in your hand.
Right?
Oh yeah, that is a crazy feeling when your words are on paper in front of you.
You're like, I wrote that.
That's my name on it.
You're like,
yeah.
Oh.
So JAHMIL, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great getting to know you.
Yes.
And great hearing about your story.
Yep.
And maybe we'll have you back again sometime.
Yeah, I
That'd
think
be
we'll
great.
have to when he
Get
has
book
his
3
third
out
book.
and working on number 4.
Maybe have
Oh,
your
yeah.
brother on too.
Yeah, we could have your
Yes.
brother too.
Because he's writing a companion piece to your second book, right?
Right.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see his viewpoint.
Right.
Oh yeah, he has an interesting story. I've been reading it, so I'm like backstage. I know everything that's coming, and it's
There you go. That's cool.
Awesome.
That's cool. So we're going to move you over to the side. Let's see if I can
Yeah.
do this now. There we go. I got you over there. Hope that didn't hurt.
Nah, I'm
Told you
fine.
to have that seatbelt on, right? Couple things. Events coming up March 23rd. Meet the Author and Voice of Indie podcast crossover event
Oh yeah.
with Stephen Gies and Beam Weeks. That'll be March 23rd on our show. And then April 6th is the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles reveal.
That'll be fun.
The first 3 authors out of a 9-author anthology are going to be revealing their first, talk about their first three books. And
We'll tell them about the crossover, what that means.
the crossover is that Stephen Gies is going to be on our show.
Mm-hmm.
First name's Gary, really, but he goes by Stephen Gies too. Probably most of you have heard of him. He's going to be on our show, and then immediately following that, we're going to hop over and be on his podcast.
So it'll be 2 hours.
with him
an
and
hour.
Beam Weeks. Yeah.
Yep.
So it'll be 7 and 8 o'clock on March 23rd.
So that'll be fun.
Coming up next week, at the end of this week on Saturday on episode Rewind, where we have all of our episodes rewinding. Kirsten Hall and Tori Gates on episode 14. That was a really cool show.
Yes.
And
You all
you
know
don't want to miss
Tori.
that.
It'll be fun to
That's
hear from him again.
5:30 Eastern time, right here where you're watching this show. And then next Wednesday is episode 48, and it'll be Jay Edwards Holt. It's going to be on. He writes fantasy in the young adult style. So that should be interesting too, another fantasy author.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I've talked enough. Thanks.
What? Okay. So I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Oh,
What?
no, it isn't all. Right now, we're going to be playing the Rochester Parafest commercial, and it'll tell you everything that you always wanted to know and didn't know you wanted to know about the Rochester Parafest. Tune and watch that on the way out. So until next time.
That's all, folks.
joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.